but how would you rig dynamic dreads flopping around on a head? I mean, that's a fun question. At a certain point, you just need a single model of like one what is the singular of dreads a dread? Oh yeah, I have like rehab, or is it just ehab? But yeah, that's cool. Let me just quickly Google this. Images, make sure it's all clean. Yeah, so essentially we've got like just dreads all over the place. So you can get essentially at certain points, just like we got they're almost like little individual braids, but then they tend to be fuzzier. So you just need a singular model of one, and then you start copying a bunch of them to the overall shape. So let me think of what the best way, or what I might actually do here. What's a quick version of this? I'm going to make a hemisphere, and with the hemisphere, create just a simple hair object. So we'll add hair. So there's these hairs. What the main goal here is going to be, like, you could make them custom. You could put these exactly where you want them to be. In fact, I can say I want my hairs to exist as guides. So now literally every one of these is one hair. Now, if nobody has done this, you should totally do this because it's really fun. There's actually a really neat thing. Well, I'll show you in a moment after we set the generator. I'm going to generate. Let me simplify. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. Let's generate something. I would like to generate circle sweeps. Now, this is actually sweeping geometry now. Let's say don't show hairs, but now you can see there's actually geometry here. Now, the subdivisions, well, they're hard to see. So let's open up the hair material, and the thickness is actually driving this part. So I'm not sure what size we want these dreads to be, but let's say 11 by 11. Okay, they're gonna be pretty thick, but that's fine. Let's go with this. Now, that is determining the thickness. Then we can determine how many subdivisions there are. That's entirely dependent on what this guide said. So if I say 12, there are now 12 subdivisions. If I say 4, there are now 4 subdivisions. So let's keep that in mind. Now, if we just hit play, these are going to behave like individual hairs and flop over. The more subdivisions they have, the floppier they will be. They can bend further down. And this is not too bad as it stands. So let's go under forces, and we've got this hair-to-hair settings. And actually, I think that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to try and do some hair-to-hair collisions. I'm not sure how well this works. There is a radius, and we currently set this radius up to, I think, 11. So let's see if that works. I'm going... Excuse me. Let's see how well this works. I mean, it's working all right. I've never thought that they work super great. I mean, here's a strength, and I think they just kind of push away from each other. So yeah, there's almost like a force where there's like, no, kind of push away a bit. So yeah, not amazing, but I think it gives us a decent amount of control. I also want to get a little bit of motion, so I will make a vibrate tag. Oop, that's not vibrate tag. And I'm actually going to, no, I will use a vibrate tag. This is a good use case for signal, but let's keep this vanilla right now. Let's say 33 by 33 by 33, frequency of 0.5. So what this should do is start rotating a little bit and not too quickly, just so we can get them like shaking up a little bit. So let's just say generically that's our basic dreads movement. Now let's save this as number 2A dreads. Having done that and letting these all flop around, we could change how quickly they can bend on the base point. You can do that via... Where are those settings? I think they are on... Are they advanced? Cache parting. Oh, it's just under dynamics. Apologies. Under dynamics, that is just the properties, and I think it's the hold roots. Right now they're being held like 80%. If we drop that down to 20, it should be able to bend. Yeah, you can see they bend a lot more quickly from the base. So you got to find your happy medium there of how quickly you want them to bend. Otherwise, you just need more subdivisions. Now, this is where I don't know if this will work, and let's see if it does. But my thought is, can we clone, because this is now geometry, can we clone hairs onto this geometry? So that's the tricky part. So with these hairs selected, can I say hair, add hair object? So now you can see that each of these dreads has a hair, and they're all getting cloned all over the place. In this case, I want lots of subdivisions, but I need a length. I need the length to be pretty short. So you can, yeah, let's make it longer than that. And this is a little dangerous. I can hit 1 frame forward, 2 frames forward, 3 frames forward. Okay, so that seems all right. Oh, that seems to be working really well, actually. You can see that the hairs are, it's just working quite nicely. So now we have a basis for the hairs, and then hairs cloned onto that. So that's actually quite nice. Now, there might be a refresh issue. I should probably definitely make the second one happen after the first. So let's just call this hair Geo. So with that in mind, why don't we make these tubes way thinner? So the hair material itself needs a thickness of, let's say, I don't know, 3 by 3. So it's going to look thinner, but dynamically they're still pushing apart from each other a lot. And I think all of those hairs will update and jump to that geometry. I think they're all connected. Now, we would have to play with the actual hair material here. So probably a lot of, I'm not sure what a good combination here is, but like a lot of clumping, a lot of frizz. So like tons of frizz, let's say frizz 111%. So tons of frizz on that. Clumping will kind of counter that. Kink is kind of like frizz, but for the entire hair. But really, I just want to like maximize a ton of frizziness in here. You could also get a bunch of curl in there. I don't have a good combination in my head. If we render this, it's probably going to generate a lot of hairs. So yeah, you can see them all start to intertangle quite a bit. Some of it just turns into we need the proper frizziness. And this is definitely not an area of expertise for me. But I feel like there's less shine. Like if there's darker hair, then we're just not getting that much individual shine from any one hair. But there's also a chance that, so we'll pull back on this specular. And if we render that, hopefully we start getting something that's a little bit more calmed down. Yeah, immediately that starts looking better there. We can darken this up from the default a bit if we're inclined. And yeah, so that's actually filling the space pretty well. If we tell the original hairs not to render, and we have these be full enough of enough hairs, then I think you'll just get this really nice kind of clumped up frizz. And you could layer up multiple things. You could also keep the original hair there and render it and just put a dark color or a color that will match the original hairs on there. Keep in mind the thickness that we're applying here, that is a variable we can tinker with. So this could get thinner on the tip, although this isn't going to make much of a difference because most of the frizziness is coming after fact, but they could be tapering a bit as they get near the end, thicker at the bottom. And if this is all working, which I don't know that it is, these hairs I think shouldn't be dynamic anymore. So these, I would say no dynamics. They're just going to travel along with whatever they're on, but all this frizziness and everything will hopefully be maintained. I don't know how good that this will look, but let's pop open some render settings and just see if it gives us anything even slightly reasonable. What I'm impressed with is how everything is parametric still. So let's give that a go. I mean, it'd probably help if we get a light in here, but it's already going to take a bit of render time. Let's see if we make 2 lights with shadow. Let's make one a little bit warmer, one of them a little darker and blue. So let's just see if that gives us anything. Yeah, actually there's a little bit of definition there. I mean, I'm sort of inclined to lighten it up just so we can see them. Although if we put in a sky, then they'll be on a background we can actually contrast against. Yeah, there we go. They still look a little bit dark, maybe depending on the lighting angle, but maybe we want to bring some of that specular back. The other thing I'd say is we'd want to maybe make, yeah, we gotta go easy with a specular. Something that would probably improve the overall effect as well would be more thinner hairs, because right now there's a decent density there, but I want everything to run relatively quickly for a stream. So let's just run this and see if we get anything even semi-reasonable, because this might like explode horribly. I wonder how consistent they will be. But I gotta say, I'm impressed, even as far as we've gotten, that we can clone hairs onto hairs and maybe get it's looking pretty good. Like they don't seem to be twitching. Like I'm watching individual hairs and they seem to be maintaining their shape, but who knows? Yeah, as soon as these fall, they look pretty nice. It's not perfect. I should make more of them. They should be thinner. Um, it's possible we could get some color variation in them, but you could always make more than one hair object. Like one could have one type, another could have another. Right now, maybe it's a little too frizzy, or we need the kinks to work better, or we need more smaller ones because they're very fuzzy on the ends, and maybe you want that. But if you don't, you want more definition, then I think more smaller hairs would fill in the volume as well. Now, this does have the vibrate tag, so it will just constantly move. Let's see if it looks any good. All right, that actually looks shockingly good for what I thought we'd get out of it. Like the hairs are perfectly consistent. The dynamics are working pretty well. There's a lot we could do as far as like combing and styling this and making sure we can make the overall hair stiffer so they wouldn't be so inclined to fall. But yeah, they are being consistent. They're being stiff. We could add additional settings to fix almost every able to do right now, just because it's running so relatively quickly. Let's just Tyrone, I think we did do hair on hair here. Like we turned on forces hair to hair. We didn't do surface to hair, so they might be passing through that as a collider, which I should probably do. Simulation hair collider, so now they won't collide with the head or the scalp at least. But just for fun, why don't we try making there be more hairs? So let's make 3 times as many hairs, but make them a third the length. Maybe not quite a third. I'll say 8. So they're a lot smaller, but there's 3 times as many. And let's see if they can fill up the volume really well. And I mean, it's all looking pretty good. So if we just render, now we might start getting a little bit too much separation from one to the next. No, that's pretty good. So you see, by adding 3 times as many hairs and making them be less frizzy, do you see how there's more definition to them as a group? So I think that actually goes a pretty long way. Keep in mind that there's so much power we can go into the color, and we could add variation to all of them. So like a 5% variation in the color, and we could do a 5% variation in the value. You gotta be careful because this hue variation can go off the rails quickly, but that seems all right. Changing the specular, like how sharp the specular is going to be a major variable. I'm not going to over stress out about lighting this and setting up. The basic idea is working surprisingly well. So, and then the last thing I was going to say is we don't talk about this too often, but if I'm going to turn off the second hair, and now we're just looking at the original hair geometry. And we'll save this as another version. If you've never tinkered around with this in the hairs, it's pretty cool. These hairs are where they are, but if we get rid of them, what's the best way to do this? If I say simulate hair, where do we get this? Hair mode tip selection. We do a live selection. Well, let's just try and do that. I'm going to select all, hit delete. I've deleted all the hairs. So then under hair mode, we can now say tools, probably add guides. So now we can add guides, which means if this is the head of a character or a mountaintop, because right now we're painting geometry, as I paint, I can just put these anywhere I want. And keep in mind, when it comes to this hair geometry, I said, don't render individual hairs, render exactly what we're seeing. So this is what is actually there. So you have the ability to paint hairs, and thus, if these are currently dynamic, but you can imagine we could be painting trees right now. We could be painting flowers. So you have like, oh, here's a hair object, but that's clover. Here's a hair object, but this one's going to be dandelions. Here's just grass strands, and you could paint individual different plants if you wanted to, but it also works with hairs. In this case, we could say a count of 0, a radius of, a count of 1, a radius of 1. And now I can literally put individual hairs exactly where I want them to be. So, you could give somebody a bald spot and place these just exactly where you want them. So yeah, we could just do something like that. We should be able to just reactivate these. There's a chance. Yeah, it didn't quite refresh, but that's easy enough to fix. I think if we just say, possibly just update that guides. Let's say regrow. Yeah, if I click regrow in the actual hair, then it will regrow on just those. And now hitting play, now those are doing their thing. And if we render, 3 times as many, but there you go. That just works as well. So you get all these. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of what, if you wanted, like, the way hair actually works is all the stuff is getting clumped together from the area around it. I'm not sure if any of the, look at the reference images and none of them show it too well, but all the hair has to come from somewhere. So pulling these in isn't, I don't really have it in my head, but you could clone a series of splines onto those and clone hairs onto them. But I think it's working pretty well. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that as a overall concept. I'll leave that saved as number 2. And let's see. Yeah, that seems good. Everybody seems to like it. Yep, seems like I covered the question.